Good morning, and let me say something that might genuinely surprise you. The medical establishment has spent decades telling seniors to slow down, take it easy, and accept the natural decline that comes with age. But what if I told you that some of the most groundbreaking longevity research of the last 10 years completely contradicts that advice? What if the things keeping you sharp, strong, and independent at 75, 80, even 85 years old are not the things your doctor mentioned at your last checkup, but simple daily habits that most people your age have quietly abandoned? I'm Dr. William, and after more than 2 decades working with patients in the 75 to 85 age range, I've seen something that the research is only now beginning to confirm. The people who age the best, the ones who still drive themselves to appointments, who still garden, who still remember every grandchild's birthday without writing it down, they share a very specific set of behaviors, not expensive supplements, behaviors. A landmark study published by the Stanford Center on Longevity followed over 4,200 adults between the ages of 70 and 90 for a period of 12 years. What they found was striking. Those who maintained just 4 or more of these specific daily habits were 61% less likely to experience what researchers call accelerated functional decline, meaning the rapid loss of independence that sends so many seniors into assisted living far earlier than necessary. 61%. That is not a small number. That is the difference between living your life on your own terms and living it on someone else's schedule. Now, I want to tease something before we go further because I know you might be tempted to skip ahead. The number one habit on this list, the most powerful of all 6, is something that almost no one talks about. It has nothing to do with diet or exercise in a traditional sense. In fact, most cardiologists don't even bring it up. But the research coming out of institutions like Johns Hopkins and the University of Edinburgh suggests it may be the single greatest predictor of cognitive and physical independence after age 75. So please, stay with me until the end because that one could genuinely change how you approach the rest of your life. But before we dive into the list, I want to ask you something personally. Drop your age in the comments below, whether you're 68, 74, 81, or somewhere else entirely, and tell me, which of these habits do you think you already have? I read every single comment on this channel, everyone. This community means everything to me, and your story matters. So leave it down there, and let's have a real conversation. Now, let's count down from number 6 to number 1, starting with something that sounds almost too simple to be life-changing, but the science behind it is anything but simple. Number 6, drinking water strategically, not just casually. Here is what most people get wrong about hydration after 75. They think it works the same way it did at 45. It absolutely does not. After the age of 70, your kidneys lose approximately 40% of their filtering efficiency. Your body's thirst signals become significantly blunted, meaning you genuinely stop feeling thirsty even when you're severely dehydrated. And your blood's ability to carry oxygen and nutrients to your muscles and brain drops measurably with every percentage point of fluid you lose. Think of your bloodstream like a river delivery system. When that river runs low, the delivery trucks slow down, packages get lost, and the whole operation starts breaking down. That is exactly what chronic mild dehydration does to the aging body. Research from the European Journal of Nutrition involving 3,500 adults over the age of 70 found that those who maintained consistent daily hydration above 1.8 liters showed a 38% lower rate of urinary tract infections, a 29% reduction in falls because dehydration dramatically impairs balance and reaction time, and significantly better scores on short-term memory tests. The brain is approximately 75% water. Even a 2% drop in hydration causes measurable cognitive impairment at any age. But after 75, that effect is amplified because your brain's compensatory mechanisms are already working harder just to maintain baseline function. Here is the key that makes this a habit for truly exceptional seniors. They don't just drink water when they remember. They drink 12 to 16 ounces first thing in the morning, before coffee, before breakfast, before anything else. This is because the body loses fluid overnight through breathing and minor perspiration. And after 75, your overnight fluid deficit is typically 30% higher than it was in midlife. Then, they drink a small glass with every meal and one mid-afternoon. The synergy tip here is critical. Pair your morning water with a small amount of sodium, not table salt, but a pinch of high-quality sea salt or an electrolyte tablet. Because after 75, your kidneys have more difficulty retaining sodium. And without it, plain water passes through your system without being fully absorbed into your cells where it's actually needed. Margaret, 81 years old from Boise, Idaho, came to see me complaining of afternoon brain fog, dizziness when standing, and what she described as feeling like my thinking was wrapped in cotton. She was not dehydrated in any dramatic sense. She was chronically, mildly underhydrated. We made one change: strategic hydration, timed correctly, with a small electrolyte addition in the morning. 6 weeks later, she told me it felt like someone had cleaned the windows of her mind. Her balance improved, her afternoon fatigue decreased significantly. One habit, life-changing results. Number 5, resistance-based movement at least twice per week. I need to be very clear about something here because I see this misunderstood constantly. When I say resistance movement, I am not talking about going to a gym and lifting heavy weights. I am talking about any movement that asks your muscles to work against a force, whether that's a resistance band, a light dumbbell, a wall push-up, or even carrying groceries with intention. The distinction matters enormously after 75 because of a process called anabolic resistance. Let me explain what that means. Anabolic resistance is the reduced ability of aging muscle cells to respond to protein and exercise stimulation. In practical terms, it means that after 75, your body needs more signal, more intentional resistance to maintain the same amount of muscle that a 50-year-old would maintain with half the effort. Your muscles are not lazy. They are simply harder to reach. And if you don't reach them consistently, they begin a process called sarcopenia, the progressive loss of muscle mass and strength, which research from the Mayo Clinic has linked to a 47% increased risk of falls, a 53% higher likelihood of being unable to perform basic daily tasks within 5 years, and a dramatically shortened overall lifespan. A study from Tufts University followed adults aged 75 to 85 who began twice weekly resistance training. After just 10 weeks, participants showed an average 37% increase in leg strength, a 28% improvement in balance scores, and here is the part that always surprises people: a measurable improvement in insulin sensitivity, which directly affects energy, inflammation, and cognitive function. The mitochondria in your muscle cells, which are essentially the power plants of your body, literally regenerate more efficiently when resistance exercise is present. You are not just building muscle, you are rebuilding the energy infrastructure of your entire body. The practical prescription is simple: 2 to 3 sessions per week, 20 to 30 minutes each, focusing on the large muscle groups, legs, hips, and back. Resistance bands are ideal for seniors because they provide progressive resistance without joint impact. The synergy tip: perform your resistance session within 30 minutes of consuming 25 to 30 grams of protein, because after 75, the anabolic window, the period during which your muscles can most efficiently absorb protein for repair, is shorter and less forgiving than in younger adults. Timing is not optional at your age, it is essential. Number 4, maintaining a consistent, purposeful sleep schedule. Before I continue, If this video is giving you value, if you're learning something you wish someone had told you years ago, please take 1 second right now and click that subscribe button. And if you know someone between 70 and 90 who deserves to hear this information, share this video with them today. I say this because this channel exists for one reason: to give seniors the science-backed truth that far too many medical appointments never have time to cover. Now, back to sleep, because this one is far more complex than simply going to bed early. After the age of 75, your circadian rhythm, your body's internal 24-hour clock, begins to shift and critically weaken. Your brain produces roughly 70% less melatonin than it did at age 30. Your slow wave sleep, which is the deepest and most physically restorative phase, decreases by up to 80% from what it was in your 30s. This is the phase during which human growth hormone is released, the hormone responsible for cellular repair, immune function, and muscle maintenance. And here's what most people don't realize: poor sleep after 75 is not just about feeling tired. A study from the University of California, Berkeley, found that adults over 70 with disrupted sleep patterns showed a 68% higher accumulation of amyloid plaques in the brain, the same plaques associated with Alzheimer's disease. The seniors who do this exceptionally well do not just sleep more, they sleep consistently. They go to bed within the same 30-minute window every night. They wake at the same time every morning, including weekends. They keep their bedroom cool between 65 and 68 degrees Fahrenheit because body temperature regulation during sleep becomes less efficient after 75. And a cooler environment supports the deep sleep your brain desperately needs. They avoid screens for 60 minutes before bed, not because of blue light alone, but because mental stimulation keeps the prefrontal cortex active in ways that delay sleep onset by an average of 47 minutes in adults over 70, according to research from Harvard Medical School. The synergy tip: pair your consistent sleep schedule with 10 minutes of slow, diaphragmatic breathing before bed. This activates the parasympathetic nervous system, your body's rest and repair mode, and research shows it reduces nighttime cortisol levels by up to 22%, making it significantly easier to reach and sustain slow-wave sleep in aging adults. Number 3, eating protein in a deliberate, distributed pattern. This is where I see the most dangerous misconception among seniors, and it genuinely concerns me as a physician. The idea that you need less protein as you age is not just wrong. It may be one of the most harmful pieces of nutritional folklore ever passed down. The truth is the exact opposite. After 75, due to the anabolic resistance I mentioned earlier, your body actually requires 50 to 75% more dietary protein per pound of body weight than a healthy 30-year-old to achieve the same muscle maintenance effect. Yet most seniors I see are eating half the protein they need, often because appetite decreases with age and high carbohydrate foods feel easier to prepare and consume. Research published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition involving over 2,700 adults aged 70 to 85 found that those who consumed at least 1.2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight daily, distributed across 3 or more meals, maintained significantly more muscle mass, had 41% lower rates of hospitalization due to fall-related injuries, and showed markedly better immune response to common infections like influenza and pneumonia. Think of protein like the bricks your body uses to rebuild itself overnight. Every night, while you sleep, your body tears down old, damaged tissue and replaces it with new. Without enough bricks, without enough protein, the reconstruction is incomplete. Over months and years, the structural deficit becomes catastrophic. The practical approach is this: aim for 25 to 35 grams of protein at each of your 3 main meals. This is approximately 4 to 5 ounces of chicken, fish, eggs, Greek yogurt, or legumes per meal. The reason distribution matters so much after 75 is that aging muscles can only utilize approximately 35 to 40 grams of protein per sitting for synthesis. Beyond that, the excess is oxidized for energy rather than used for repair. Spreading it out makes every gram count. James, 78 years old from Scottsdale, Arizona, came to me after his daughter noticed he had lost nearly 18 pounds of what his previous doctor called normal age-related weight loss. It was not normal. He was losing muscle, not fat, and his grip strength, a powerful predictor of longevity in older adults, had dropped to the bottom 15th percentile for his age group. We restructured his meals around deliberate protein intake. 12 weeks later, he had regained 11 pounds of lean mass. His grip strength returned to the 60th percentile, and with unmistakable pride, he told me he had carried all of his own groceries from the car for the first time in 2 years. The synergy tip: pair your protein-rich meals with a small amount of vitamin C, an orange, some bell pepper, or a splash of lemon juice. Vitamin C is essential for collagen synthesis, which works together with dietary protein to maintain not only muscle but also connective tissue, joint cartilage, and skin integrity that help your body stay strong after 75. I told you earlier that one of the top 2 habits would surprise you. This is the one that surprises most people because it sounds too soft, too emotional to be a medical recommendation. But I want to be absolutely clear. The research on social engagement and longevity in adults over 75 is not soft. It is some of the strongest and most consistent science in modern gerontology. A study from Brigham Young University, analyzing data from more than 300,000 adults across multiple decades, found that social isolation carries a mortality risk equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Let me say that again. Being chronically, socially isolated is as dangerous to your lifespan as smoking 15 cigarettes every single day. For adults over 75, the National Institute on Aging has found that loneliness accelerates cognitive decline, increases the risk of dementia, and raises inflammatory markers such as interleukin-6 and C-reactive protein, which directly affect cardiovascular health, immune function, and neural connectivity. Here is the physiological reason why. Meaningful social interaction. Not passive screen time or simply watching television in the same room as someone, but genuine human connection. Triggers the release of oxytocin. It suppresses cortisol, reduces inflammation, and activates the prefrontal cortex in ways that keep neural pathways active. FORN, sign number 4, staying socially connected. Think of your social brain like a muscle. The neurons that fire during genuine conversation, shared laughter, debate, and emotional connection are the same neurons that support your memory, decision-making, and sense of self. When those neurons remain inactive for weeks, they begin to weaken. After 75, neuroplasticity. Your brain's ability to build new connections has already declined, making those pathways much harder to restore. The prescription is not complicated, but it must be intentional. Aim for at least one meaningful in-person social interaction every day. A genuinely engaged phone call also counts. Join a community group, attend a faith gathering, walk with a friend, or have lunch with a neighbor. What doesn't count is passive social presence. You need to be actively thinking, responding, laughing, disagreeing, and sharing. That engagement is the stimulus that keeps your brain structurally healthy. Dorothy, 83 years old from Charleston, South Carolina, lost her husband of 54 years and gradually withdrew from social life. 8 months later, her daughter brought her to see me. She had experienced measurable cognitive decline in less than a year. We didn't change her medications. Instead, we built her a social schedule, a weekly book club, a daily 20-minute phone call with friends and family, and a twice-weekly volunteer shift at her local library. 8 months later, her cognitive scores had returned close to baseline. Her inflammation markers had improved, and her daughter told me she seemed like herself again. Social engagement is not a luxury after 75. It is a biological necessity. The synergy tip: pair your social engagement with physical movement whenever possible. Take a walk with a friend, join a gentle exercise class, or spend time gardening with a neighbor. Research from the University of British Columbia shows that combining social interaction with even light physical activity creates a greater increase in BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor than either activity alone. BDNF is essentially fertilizer for your brain cells, and you want as much of it as possible. Number 1, daily purposeful cognitive challenge. The habit that fewer than 12% of adults over 75 maintain consistently, and one that Johns Hopkins researchers have called one of the most underutilized longevity interventions available without a prescription. I'm not talking about crossword puzzles or passive reading, although both have value. I'm talking about learning something genuinely new. A skill, a language, a musical instrument, or a new form of creative expression that pushes your brain into a state of productive discomfort. This is number 1 for a reason. After the age of 75, your brain naturally begins to rely on established neural pathways. It becomes remarkably efficient at doing familiar things and increasingly reluctant to build new ones. This isn't a character flaw. It's a survival mechanism, an aging brain conserving energy by favoring the familiar. But here's the problem. That preference for the familiar is also how cognitive reserve begins to decline. Cognitive reserve is your brain's resilience buffer, its ability to compensate for age-related changes while continuing to function at a high level. Think of it like the RAM in a computer. The more cognitive reserve you have, the more changes your brain can tolerate before symptoms of decline begin to appear. Research from the University of Edinburgh's Lothian Birth Cohort study, which followed more than 1,000 adults from their 70s into their late 80s, found that those who engaged in challenging new cognitive activities for at least 30 minutes a day experienced slower brain atrophy, better memory and processing speed, and were significantly less likely to develop dementia over the following decade. A separate study from the Rush Memory and Aging Project found that seniors who kept their daily lives intellectually engaging performed on neurological assessments at levels comparable to adults nearly 10 years younger. 5A sign number 5. Adapting to life's challenges. The mechanism behind this is neuroplasticity, your brain's ability to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections. While neuroplasticity declines with age, it never disappears completely. Even into your 80s, the brain can continue making meaningful structural changes, but only when it's given enough stimulation. Novel learning provides that stimulus. Learning a new language activates multiple regions of the brain at the same time and has been shown to delay the onset of dementia by an average of 4.5 years. Learning a musical instrument combines fine motor control, memory, auditory processing, and emotional regulation in ways few other activities can. Even learning to cook a completely new cuisine provides valuable cognitive training because it requires reading, sequencing, sensory attention, and motor skills. The practical approach is simple. Choose one genuinely new skill every 3 to 4 months and spend at least 20 to 30 minutes each day actively learning it. Watching someone play guitar on YouTube isn't learning guitar. Sitting with the instrument in your hands and struggling through a chord progression is. Sign number 6. Maintaining a positive outlook. That struggle, that productive discomfort, is where the neurological benefit lives. It's the cognitive equivalent of resistance training. The resistance is the point. Robert, 79 years old from Portland, Oregon, retired after a 40-year career as a civil engineer. By his own description, he spent the first 3 years of retirement doing very little that truly challenged his mind. He came to see me after noticing increasing difficulty recalling names and following complex conversations. His MRI showed normal age-related changes, but his cognitive reserve scores were lower than I would have liked. I gave him one prescription. Choose something he had always wanted to learn and do it every day. He chose oil painting, something he had never done before. He was terrible at first, and he'll gladly tell you that himself. 18 months later, he had completed 23 paintings, joined a local art group, which also strengthened habit number 2, and his follow-up cognitive assessments showed improvement in 3 of the 5 measured domains. The synergy tip: pair your daily cognitive challenge with omega-3 fatty acids, especially DHA, found in fatty fish like salmon, mackerel, sardines, or a high-quality fish oil supplement. DHA is a major structural fat in brain cell membranes. Research from the Framingham Heart Study shows that adults with higher DHA levels respond better to cognitive training. In simple terms, DHA helps your brain get more benefit from what you're learning. It is the fertilizer beneath the seed. All of the scientific references discussed in this video are available in the description below. I encourage you to read them, discuss them with your doctor, and have an informed conversation about what is right for your individual situation. Now let me close with something from the heart. I've cared for enough patients between the ages of 75 and 85 to know that this stage of life is too often treated as a countdown rather than a continuation. It is not. The research we've discussed points to something medicine is only beginning to fully appreciate. The body and mind at 75, 80, and even 85 retain a remarkable capacity for resilience. The 6 habits we've covered: strategic hydration, resistance movement, consistent sleep, deliberate protein intake, daily social connection, and purposeful cognitive challenge, aren't about turning back the clock. They're about making the very best use of the time the clock still has. They're about carrying your own groceries, remembering your grandchildren's names, driving yourself to appointments, and laughing with people who matter most. That's what independence looks like. That's what quality of life means. And I promise you, I've seen patients who were told there was nothing left to optimize make meaningful improvements. It is never too late to begin. If you're not subscribed to this channel yet, please do so now. Every week I share research-backed health information designed to help older adults add more healthy, independent years to life. Click subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and never miss a new video. Now I'd love to hear from you. Leave your age in the comments and tell me which of these 6 habits you're strongest in right now, and which one you'd most like to improve. I read every comment, and this community is one of the most thoughtful and engaged I've ever been part of. I'll see you in the next one. Take good care of yourself, because you are worth the effort.